We've only got 4 days left of mask mandates in Oregon and Washington. So we're asking you, are you going to throw all your masks out or continue wearing them?
I'll probably still do it in the winter just to stay healthy.
You haven't been able to see people's faces in a really long time.
I am going to continue wearing a mask myself.
And with the ongoing violence in Portland, we asked the leading candidates for governor, what are your plans to stop it?
We need more officers on the street who are trained to go after gun violence.
There is too much violence out there and people are hurting, so we have to help them when they need it at the right time.
Plus, remember how Oregon banned those so-called love letters that people write when they're trying to buy a home? It was because of the possibility of discrimination.
There's always the risk that a seller could be accused of making a decision based upon inappropriate factors.
Well, a judge just said actually that ban violates the First Amendment. Here's the story. I'm Pat Doris. Welcome to The Story. I want to take you up to Mount Hood right away, where a rescue is underway for one or more mountain climbers who are hurt and stuck on the mountain. Sky shot this video just a little bit ago. We believe the rescue is happening on the west side of Illumination Rock. The challenge, of course, is the sun is about to go down. The wind is already blowing hard. Meteorologist Matt Zafino says the weather will get worse as the night goes on. He will have an update at 6:30. Certainly sending thoughts of healing and safety and hope for everyone involved there. In the meantime, all the ways you can communicate with us right there at the bottom of your screen. You can email us. The address is thestory@kgw.com. You could also use the hashtag #TheStory, on Twitter, or leave us a good old-fashioned voicemail. Just call our phone number, 503-226-5090. So welcome to Monday. With any luck, this is going to be the last Monday where indoor mask requirements are in place for both Washington and Oregon. The mandate goes away at 11:59 this Friday night. That's March 11th. That means you no longer have to wear a mask to go to the grocery store or the gym or church, although you sure still can if you want. The mandate's going away because it appears that Omicron has run its course. Statewide COVID hospitalizations are 304. Look at the graph there on the far right. The lowest number, 304, since last July, and the lowest of any time for the Omicron variant. And the experts say pretty much all of us are now either vaccinated or infected or, sorry, both. So how are you feeling about the change? We posed that question to you Friday and to other folks I met outside today. Even though masks are not required outside in Oregon or Washington, it's not unusual to see people wearing them. Perhaps it's easier if you're going in and out of shops, or it keeps your face warm against a chilly morning, or just makes you feel safer. Sue Jacoby looks forward to ditching hers.
I think it's great. I love it. I was just thinking about it on the elevator, and I thought I'll probably still do it in the winter just to stay healthy, you know, with all the flu virus and everything going around. But I'm pretty psyched about it. I'm pretty excited about wearing lipstick again.
James Cameron thinks dropping masks will help bring back some humanity.
It's more like human. It's more like getting to see people again. Everything opening up, getting back to more of a human kind of life than being in front of a screen the whole time. I'd say a lot of people have missed it, you know.
But not everyone agrees.
I am going to continue wearing a mask myself, and will continue wearing one until I feel comfortable not wearing.
Andrew Preble is a regular viewer. I emailed him after he commented on masks, and we talked on Zoom today. Like many of you, he's convinced that masks help slow the spread of the virus.
You know, the main reason I'm nervous about it is because, you know, every time things get better in the past, that we relax things and let things open up, I see COVID go up, and sometimes a new variant and sometimes not.
Another viewer who called in agreed.
This is horrifying, taking away the mask mandate right now. They do this every time. The curve starts to go down, they take away the mask mandate, and it goes back up again. You watch.
Over the course of 2 years, we've had lots of ups and downs, and as a viewer named Al points out, we've also learned not everyone sees things the way we do.
What I think one of the big issues is that the mask mandate seems to have shown a light or revealed just how many mentally and emotionally fragile, unhinged people there are in the world based on their reactions to wearing a mask.
Others wanted mask mandates dropped last week. Holly Rideau wrote, "So happy the mask mandate is almost over. Why not drop it now? The number is below 400. If people want to wear masks, okay with me, but don't force me to do it." There are a wide range of reasons people will keep wearing masks even after the rule goes away. Margaret Ashmore wrote to say, "I'm very happy to keep my mask on while I'm inside. I'm 62 with health issues that make me concerned for my health even though Omicron is less fatal. I'm more afraid of long COVID than I am death." Back out on the streets, Emery Black can't wait for the simple joy of seeing others without masks.
I'm really excited about it, and it's kind of crazy I haven't been able to see people's faces in a really long time, but definitely still going to use caution when needed.
She'll still mask up inside when there are big groups. Alyssa Caruso also told me it will take a while before she goes mask-free inside. A lot of people have told us it's kind of like a psychological safety net. Is that kind of what you're feeling?
Yeah, and I grew up in Japan, and I feel like it's like very common there to just do it for like other people and yourself. So I'm going back to the office in May, but still planning on doing all of that until I feel better, I guess.
Now let's turn to our big story. It was another violent weekend. Since Friday night, the Greater Portland has had 5 shootings, 2 stabbings, 1 armed robbery. And yes, Vancouver, I know your area also had 2 drive-by shootings over the weekend. It's a terrible trend, one that we decided to ask the leading candidates for governor about in Oregon. Now, I know the Oregon governor is not the police chief or sheriff, but they can have a lot of influence when it comes to funding for anti-violence programs and for backing up the police. Tonight, you're going to hear from the top 2 Democrats, Tobias Reed and Tina Kotek. They have very different approaches when I asked them what they would do to help stop the violence. We have edited some of the answers down for time, but we will be posting the entire interview on our YouTube page this week, and you should go watch the whole thing for yourself. In the meantime, first up, Tina Kotek, who pointed to her work in the legislature to help pay for community violence prevention and intervention.
Well, one of the things that I worked on before I left the legislature a couple weeks ago was put together a bill for community violence intervention and prevention. The federal government is saying we would like to use Medicaid dollars to pay for this type of case management to help families. If you're involved in a shooting, for example, and you're in a hospital bed, getting trained individuals from your community to talk with you about, okay, what happened? How do we break that cycle of violence? So this legislative session, I think that bill will get funded, and it will provide services not only in Portland but in other places to help people break that cycle of violence. And I think that's where we go. That's what really important, to help. There is too much violence out there and people are hurting, so we have to help them when they need it at the right time.
By the way, we did check, and nearly every Democrat and every Republican voted for the bill she mentioned. It's waiting now for the governor's signature. So, Kotek seemed most focused on going upstream to stop the violence before it begins, but did not say that much in terms of stopping the current violence. Tobias Reed, also a Democrat, had a very different answer to the same question. He did focus on the immediate issue.
I think we have to be on offense in this respect. We have to ban ghost guns, the untraceable firearms that are an increasing problem. I think we have to hold parents accountable if their weapons are used by their children to commit a crime. I think we need more officers on the street who are trained to go after gun violence and people who are dealing illegally in firearms. We can do this. We can, if we are willing to fund those violence, anti-violence programs that have not been funded adequately in recent years. And it's not okay to get acclimated to this increasing level of violence. The numbers are striking and alarming.
I also asked both candidates if they would use state money to help bolster Portland police. Reed said he would definitely consider it. Kotek didn't really answer the question directly, but she said she is glad the city is expanding Portland's street response, which sends mental health experts, not police, to people who are having a mental health crisis. Tomorrow night, we'll hear from the leading Republicans, Dr. Bud Pierce and Christine Drazen. How many of you remember this story from last summer about Oregon banning homebuyer love letters? It was the most popular online story that the team on this show worked on last year. It really struck a nerve with a lot of you. If you're not familiar with it, some people write letters when they're buying homes, trying to convince the sellers to choose them over other offers. Well, Oregon banned those letters over concern about possible discrimination when homeowners are deciding who to sell to. A judge just struck down that ban, though, saying it violates the First Amendment. Some people are happy about the judge's ruling, including, as you might expect, the attorney who sued over the ban.
Sellers care about a lot of different things. It's not an impersonal transaction to sell your home. If you've lived somewhere for 20 years or 30 years, you care about your neighbors, you care about your community, you care about the home you've lived in. And so buyers, I think, tell sellers in these letters, well, we're going to take care of the home. We're going to care about it. We're not just going to flip it. We're not going to use it for an Airbnb. We're going to actually live there. And sellers want to hear that.
I have heard from sellers that is exactly right. When we originally did this story, a lot of you agreed. Diane wrote in and said, about 5+ years ago, my family was selling our parents' house. We had 4 offers. One of the offers was a young couple with a video of pictures of their family, which included their young children. They talked about that, and they did about what they did and how much they wanted the home to make their family memories. This video did persuade us to accept their offer because it was so heartfelt. But some of you had negative experiences with love letters. Kat wrote, when my mom passed away in 2010, my sister and I were faced with selling her home in Southeast Portland. It was a very emotional process, and we hoped to sell it to someone who would cherish her lovely garden. The couple we sold it to had written us a long letter promising to love the garden and to keep it looking beautiful. Now I want to cry every time I walk by her house. The garden is neglected and severely overgrown. I know that they were under no legal obligation to maintain the garden, but I wish they wouldn't have lied and made promises they had no intention of keeping. So you can see there definitely could be some hard feelings there. The concerns over love letters, of course, go beyond that. Sellers are not allowed to discriminate based on protected status like race, gender, religion, or family makeup. So if you're writing a letter describing your family or your religious holidays or any other kinds of protected characteristics, there is a concern that it could open the door to discrimination. Here's what the CEO of a real estate company told us about that.
Over time, the National Association of Realtors has actually advised against them, mainly because it rides a line of being perceived as violating fair housing rules and regulations. By that I mean, example, when a letter comes in, and if it describes the family situation or circumstances, whatever that may be, or indicates or gives a clue to a religious or any other protected class, there's always the risk that a seller could be accused of making a decision based upon inappropriate factors.
So as you can see, it's a little tricky. The state of Oregon could appeal this ruling in an effort to once again kill the real estate love letters, but for now, they are illegal. We'll keep you posted.
Last fall, a Portland hotel hosted a live autopsy of a human body that anyone could pay to attend. And the family of the man on display had no idea what his remains were being used for.
I think it is beyond imagination. It is not conceivable that this would happen to him.
So tonight, we're taking a closer look at the companies behind for-profit human body donation.
This is a reality. If it makes you uncomfortable, then maybe being a donor isn't right for you.
When the story continues.
Questions and comments to the story at kgw.com or give us a call and leave a voicemail, 503-226-5090. And by the way, we did see that one email where someone was saying, what about Betsy Johnson? We're not profiling her right now because she's not in the primary. She's running as an unaffiliated candidate, and so she won't be getting votes until November. So we're going to hold off on her for a little bit and give primary focus to the folks who are going to be in the primary. Moving on, this next story, watch out. We want to warn you about the graphic content of it. Heads up if you're queasy or eating dinner. It's okay to take a 5-minute break right now, turn off your TV or walk out of the room or whatever. I'm not going to blame you. Please do come back in 5 minutes. The next story is about what happens to human bodies once they are donated to science and education. You might remember our investigation from October. A company called Death Science put on a live pay-per-view autopsy at the downtown Portland Marriott. Tickets started at $250. Multnomah County's medical examiner tried to stop the event from happening, calling police, the county attorney, and the Oregon Medical Board, but none of them was able to step in and stop it. We later learned the family of the man whose body was on display had no idea his remains were being used as part of a live show. They donated his body to science, but the company that took his body never told the family it would be used for that show. Well, tonight, we're taking a closer look at why these businesses known as body brokers exist in the first place and whether enough is being done to regulate them. Here's Chris Ingalls with our sister station in Seattle.
You might call this commercial area toward the south end of Phoenix, Arizona, the Cadaver District. This is home to at least 4 companies that want your body after you die. One of them is Research for Life.
Are you a body broker? I find it one of the most offensive terms. It degrades and diminishes what every donor has done, and that's to donate their body for the benefit of humanity. Body brokers do not operate at this level. That's just the bottom line.
Owner Garland Shreves wants to show that not all companies that solicit whole body donations, as the trade is known, are the same. A warning, he's taking us on a tour that is not for the faint of heart.
Donors will actually come through this door here.
Donors or their next of kin typically sign up with Research for Life before they die. Within hours of their death, the company transports them here.
This here is a body cooler. Those are all cadavers that are donated for medical education research purposes. This is where they start the journey through the process. And this is the procurement area space.
Procurement room.
Yes.
So what does that mean?
What will happen is, once it's determined what the cut plan will be, they'll actually start to dissect. That is actually a chisel, if you see that right
Chisel.
there. That's a chisel.
Mallet to use the chisel?
Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Tweezers?
Yep.
Some kind of clamp here?
Yep.
And this is a bone saw right here.
That is correct.
In the procurement room, there's no escaping the reality of this business, which makes money selling human bodies in parts.
This would actually fold down underneath the table like this, and there could be a donor in there.
There could be a body in this right here.
There actually could be.
This is the place where donated bodies are dissected, cut apart. Shreves knows that's a hard concept for the public to accept.
What if you were a neurosurgeon and all you need is a human head to practice your skill set on, to become better, and you had to waste the entire body? That would be tragic. This is where we actually store tissue. This here is a walk-in freezer where anatomical specimens are stored.
These are body parts, basically.
They're all body parts.
This is a human body from the head down to the legs.
That's right, middle of the leg.
Why would somebody want the whole torso and part of the legs?
Because they may be doing a spinal course where they're teaching a neurosurgeon how to repair something with the spine.
You brought us in here because you wanted people to see the reality of the business.
Exactly.
It's kind of shocking to people that a human body is cut and stored like it might be in a meat freezer.
But the reality is, where would you store a body part rather than let it go bad and not be able to be used? This is a reality. If it makes you uncomfortable, then maybe being a donor isn't right for you. We call this a training room. It's a training lab.
But it's the final stop on the tour.
It's a bioskills facility
that Shreves hopes will persuade potential donors.
This is how you improve medicine.
It's where doctors and surgeons practice on real body parts to learn new medical procedures or tools before they use them on the living.
And that's what whole body donation is doing. It's helping people to have a better quality of life, live longer.
But 2 recent King 5 investigations have exposed a dark side. More than 24 body parts dumped in the Arizona desert have been traced back to former Seattle body broker Walter Mitchell. He obtained donations that were rejected by the University of Washington Medical School, including Cheryl Patterson's late husband, Doug.
You know, yeah, you do. You trust them to take your loved one and treat them with respect, and that's not at all what happened.
And a Las Vegas body broker supplied the cadaver for this public autopsy in October, recorded by our hidden camera. Spectators paid up to $500 a seat. We uncovered that organizers did not have consent from the 98-year-old donor's family.
You know, these people tell a good story, and they've duped a lot of families across this country by pulling on their heartstrings.
Bryant Hightower of the National Funeral Directors Association says his 20,000 members have seen enough donor deception that they pushed for this bill in Congress. It would require whole-body donation companies to register with the feds and to properly label and track each body part.
Because there's a lack of federal regulation, once a problem crops up somewhere, these bad operators simply fold their tents and move across the state line and open up shop again, and many times under a different name.
We already have laws on the books. It's called fraud.
Legitimate donation companies say prosecutors could use existing laws to charge body brokers that deceive donors. They're fighting more regulation in an industry that uses the dead to save the living.
We have the medicine we do today because of donors. That's a fact.
That was Chris Engels reporting. No criminal charges, fraud or otherwise, by the way, have been filed against body brokers. Critics say that's evidence that the current law just isn't stopping the bad operators. But that body broker bill that Chris mentioned is stalled in Congress and looks unlikely to pass now. Still ahead, Ukraine might seem like the last place on earth you'd want to book an Airbnb right now, But a lot of people around the world, including in Oregon, are actually doing that, making reservations there to help those suffering from the war. That's coming up next. Welcome back. Here's something that might surprise you. Ukraine, of all the places in the world, is actually seeing a surge in Airbnb reservations right now. But the people making those bookings, not really planning to travel there. Christine Pitawanich spoke with an Oregon man about how he's using Airbnb to send money to those in the war zone.
There are so many different ways to help people in a crisis. Historically, people have given money to various organizations like the Red Cross. Donation campaigns have popped up on sites like GoFundMe. But increasingly, people across Oregon and the country are asking, how do I know where my money is really going? That was the case for Boring resident Doug Silton.
I'm a professional dancer, choreographer, artist, adventure athlete.
As he watched Russia invade Ukraine, he wondered how he could help.
It's super surreal. I mean, I have friends who are there in the dance community and the Burning Man community, and you sort of feel stuck, right? Because obviously it's horrible. We can't do anything from over here. And every time I see a fundraiser, I'm like, well, where does that money go?
But as he scrolled social media last week, he came across an idea involving Airbnb.
And so I logged into my Airbnb and I booked a unit that's being rented by an individual, not a company. And I messaged and I said, look, I'm not going to stay there. I want to be able to donate the money. And she said, are you sure? And I said, well, yeah, like this is how I can give directly right now.
Silton says he made sure the listing was non-refundable. Once the person in Ukraine authorized the transaction, he canceled.
So she can rent it to someone else who can do the same thing now.
Silton is not alone. Scroll news headlines and you'll see the practice is making a difference. People around the world have contributed about $2 million to people in Ukraine through Airbnb bookings. Bookings where people had zero intention of actually staying. In an internet-connected world, this is one way people are trying to make a difference directly as they watch people suffer in real time.
There are rentals that go from like $12 to $200. So I just chose one that, the donation was going to be about $100. And I was like, well, hopefully this will help them out.
Meantime, Airbnb has said it is waiving all service fees in Ukraine. Airbnb is also offering free short-term housing for up to 100,000 Ukrainian refugees. Christine Pitawanich, KGW News.
That is a brilliant idea. For this week's Hey Help campaign, we're asking you to donate to the KGW Great Food Drive. During the pandemic, as many as 1 in 4 Oregonians needed food assistance, so it's more important than ever right now. All this week, local Toyota dealers will match the first $10,000 donated. To see all the ways that you can give, or if you need assistance yourself, visit kgw.com/food drive. We want to thank our partners, Pacific Office Automation, Toyota, Rivermark Community Credit Union, and Safeway for supporting this year's food drive. All right, keep sending your questions and comments to the story at kgw.com. When we come back, some good news for your Monday evening. Our final story tonight is a bit of good news because it's important to focus on the problems we have, but it's even more important to remember all the good things that are happening all around us. Here's a bit of that from a woman our producer met along the waterfront in Portland.
My positive news is I worked for the government for 40 years and retired at the age of 60, but I was on the corporate treadmill for that long, and it took me just until the last few months to relax and be retired.
Not a way, important to relax. Just relax. That's the end of our program for tonight. Thanks for watching. Remember, the story, our story, that never ends. See you tomorrow.